Well, that's what we don't want to hear, that the fuel queues will continue around Nigeria. But let's hear what the modular refineries can do about this. And we have here in the studio Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho, is the chairman board of trustees of Crude Oil Refiners Owners Association of Nigeria. That's CORAN. He is also the chief executive officer of Eco Refineries and Integrated Oil and Gas Limited. Captain, good afternoon, and thank you for coming here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Great. So the queues are back. I'm sure you saw it on your way here. And we're trying to find a solution, and we're asking what the modular refiners can do, to help in this situation.
Yeah, thank you very much. The problem that we see manifesting in the queues in town is just a disconnect between supply and demand. So if supply is not adequate to assuage a demand, then of course you see shortages and people continue to struggle and fight to get a fuel. So I think that is the main problem that we have. Modular refineries really would go a long way towards assuaging this problem in the long run. First of all, let me say what they are. We have been producing crude oil for a very long time, but we are stuck in a situation where most of the production that we have is actually shipped abroad. We sell it. And if we sell it, then whoever buys it takes it to a refinery and refines it and brings it back to us and sells it to us for about approximately twice the amount that they paid for the crude. So to start with, we really need to be able to restructure our oil industry and how we manage the sale of crude. So do we really want to be selling the crude if we can actually produce the refined products here locally? Producing the refined products here locally would ensure that we have adequate supply, and the problems that we are witnessing today we don't see. There are other multiplier benefits that we will gain from investing in modular refineries. Jobs, engineering jobs, processor jobs, all kinds of multiplier benefits are there to be realized through investment in modular refineries.
So I think, and it's not a new topic, unfortunately, the issue of exporting our crude and then importing the refined products.
Yeah.
Now we have modular refineries. Now we have Dangote already is importing WTI from the United States into a country that has a finer type of crude. I think Brent is easier to refine compared to WTI.
Sure.
And now we're expecting Port Harcourt refinery, hopefully, would also start. So we've had a lot of conversations about having crude, available to domestic refinery. We had Dangote has recently raised an alarm, saying that IOCs are making it difficult and all of that. And then we had NUPRC responding to that with guidelines, which is supposed to make the environment fair for local. Let me even ask you, starting from there, has that guideline kicked in? I think it's about a month now since that announcement was made. Well,
you know that the PIA is really a new act, and people are actually feeling their way through what is reproduced there. The NMPDRA are doing the best that they can to guide everyone. I really have a lot of dealings with them, and they are trying their best to guide people so that at the end of the day we become a much more efficient country in terms of how we deal with our crude resources. But the problem is that the numbers really weigh very heavily in favor of us actually taking out investments and making definite policy provisions for having more and more refineries. So that is one of the things that we have to do. We cannot willy-nilly get the oil, we split it according to the formula which is defined in the agreement that we have with the IOCs, and then we sell our share again back to the IOCs. It doesn't make sense. Let me give you an example of the numbers that are there. A barrel of crude oil today sells for about $80 per barrel. But if you actually break it into the refined components, for instance, in PMS, diesel, ATK, and some other residues, you are able to sell that for about $170. So you can see the big difference there. So that is where we should be going. We should be able to refine those products ourselves. We shouldn't be a country that has been exploiting oil only to deliver the oil to third parties, to say to them, well, you can take it, transport it to the refinery, refine it, put it back on a ship and bring it back, and then sell it to us for twice the amount. It doesn't really make sense. Our country really requires access to all the monies that it can have. And to be honest, if we were to develop a proper policy towards a better management of our crude resources, all of the other problems that we have, money for development, money for consumption, money to pay the debts that we owe, all of those issues would be absolutely taken care of. So that is one of the things that we have to do.
So the question is now, how do we stop this crude? Because we've heard of all their obligations, which Nigeria owes, and we have to send those crude. There was even a release from Dangote that informed us that NUPRC has said, well, they cannot do more than they have done. I think they've given 15 cargoes to Dangote and all of that. So where do we start from at this point? It seems really tight.
Well, I think that the issue here is there is a definite provision, because one of the documents that you require when you're articulating your plan for establishing a refinery, one of the documents that you are required to produce is a letter from the authorities saying that they would give you so much crude once you are able to establish. In the first instance, it used to be about 60%, but I think that they are not staying with the 60% currently. If they think that you need a little bit more than that, then they are likely to listen to an application that you will put before them. So saying it and doing it are not exactly the same thing, because I have colleagues who own modular refineries and they have finished their constructing and they really want to go, and the capacity of those modular refineries is not even much. And so you would think that it would be very easy for them to find it. But the problem that they encounter, the real problem that you encounter is you go to private sector Nigerians who are in the upstream business and they are extracting oil. And you say to them, I want to buy oil from you. And the first thing they say to you is that this oil has been pledged to the people who financed us. And so you go around and that's all you listen to. They have all pledged the oil to the people who financed them. So you then are tempted to say, who are the people who financed you, so that we can make an application to them and ask them to give us some of this oil. That's where we are currently, you see. And my advice to any of our colleagues who are involved in this is not to fight shy of it. Don't go fighting with anybody. You have a list of those who are producing crude. The law says that provision has to be made for Nigerians who own modular refineries to be giving crude. Write a letter, document it, and then discuss it. And I'm sure that in due course, people will realize that things have changed. And it's no longer business as usual, where people would say, export the crude, and that's it. And then the next time you see it, it comes back as a finished product, and you are paying twice the amount that they paid for buying the crude from you.
So I'm tempted to ask, so after you have written, is there any other thing you can do? Is there any provision in the clause? I mean, you guys had one with the clause where they say if they don't meet that domestic demand that was promised, that you can take this action or take this action.
I don't think we've come to the point where anybody has actually considered taking the authorities to court or taking them anywhere. We're still talking. The PIA is new. It's new in concept, it's new in implementation. And of course, we will continue to work with the authorities as we go along to ensure that what was intended in the provision that could be given to Nigerian refiners is attained.
So, I mean, with all of this, it seems like they talk about crude for Naira I mean, that's just on the one side, because the crude is not even available as it is.
Well, that's a big problem. It's really difficult. I mean, in my situation, I'm not a petroleum engineer, but I looked at it from the point of view of economics. When I looked at what normally happens when oil is extracted from Nigerian wells, so it's placed on board a ship, and then the ship then sails to a refinery, say in Europe, and then it's refined, and then it's brought back again on the ship. And I just thought, if I could find a formula to cut off the cost of transport, taking it from here to Europe, and cut off the cost of transport and bringing it from Europe here, it doesn't matter how the price of oil goes up or it goes down, goes up or it goes down, I will be underneath that threshold. And that is what really inspired me to come into this business. And I tried to make sure that I pass that message, that vision on to people that I deal with in the industry, to say, well, I'm not a refining engineer, but the economics of it dictates that we should be involved in this thing. What we really should be aiming for is to become a net exporter of refined products. There's absolutely no reason why 50 years down the line, we're still a net exporter of crude oil. There's no. Contemporary economics has it that you have to try and add as much value as you can in goods that you are producing before you export it, if you have to export it at all. But in our situation, we actually need the product ourselves. So it doesn't really make sense that we are exporting the crude and then we need to buy the refined products, and you are now the one that's selling it back to us.
So as parting words now, Captain, in the morning our guest said we need to restructure the oil and gas sector. You've also said the same thing.
Absolutely.
What would restructure look like? What would a restructured oil and gas sector look like in Nigeria?
Yeah, well, you know, I have talked about, and I hope that people have taken note of the fact that whatever restructure that we're talking about, if we want to restructure the economy in Nigeria, the oil sector is so central that we have to start with it. And the restructuring that we are talking about here is the issue of other people refining for us. We should say, at the end of the day, we want to be able to refine a product. If you want to ask me a question and say, where are we going to get the money from to build these refineries? And I will just give you a very rough numbers. So today we produce 1,600,000 barrels. We produce it at 365 days, and we pay $80. If you really just do the arithmetic there, you will see $47 billion. $47 billion, that's what you're going to see. Try and benchmark that against what happens. We have a budget that has been set. The budget is how much? 17.9, call it $18 billion. The difference between 47 billion and 18 billion is a lot of money. And if you wanted to invest that a windfall in building additional refineries, you would be able to build at least 5 refineries about the same size as the refinery that's in Port Harcourt. So the only thing that is missing is for somebody to sit down and articulate this thing, to say, look at it, the money is there. Don't go borrowing money from anywhere. Let's continue to sell oil at the rate at which we are selling it. And the other thing that we need to do is try and raise the threshold in terms of the volumes that we're doing, because we are doing 1.6 today. OPEC says that we can do 2.4. We are absolutely going to raise the threshold in terms of the volumes. And if we did that, how much do you think we would see? We would see $70 billion. It's a lot of money. So, but somebody has to articulate it and form it into a proposal that government can actually say to the bank.
Steps
Absolutely.
Also. Well, I guess oil theft is also an enemy to that. Captain Iheanacho, thank you so much. Captain Emmanuel Iheanacho, Chairman, Board of Trustees, Crude Oil Refiners Association of Nigeria, CORAN, is also the Chief Executive Officer of ECO Refineries and Integrated Oil and Gas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. It's nice being here.